Hi, today we're going to be looking at rounding decimal numbers, okay? So let's get started. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the tables of values again with decimals in mind. So we know the positive tables of values, but what I want to show you here is let's pretend that there's a decimal right here. It's a big decimal. So let's give it a number. Let's say 382,472. We're familiar with this. The 3 is the hundred thousands, the 8 is the 10,000s, the 2 is the 2,000s, the 2 is the thousands, the 4 is the hundreds, the 7 is the tens column, and the 2 is ones. We're familiar with this, but now we want to get into the decimal. So after, to the right of the decimal, we start with tenths, right? So just like tens, but with a th, hundredths, just like hundreds with a th, and thousands, just like thousands, but with a th as well. Okay, so let's say this number is 382,472.872. Okay, so the number is really like this: 382,472.872. There's a point right here. So 382,472.872. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to show you, the place values that come right of the decimal, so right of the ones. Okay, so how do we round? Well, when we're rounding, we always round according to what we're being told to round, whether it be whole number, nearest tenths, or nearest hundredths. Well, what does this mean? So let's look at this number right here, 17.936. If we were to round this number to whole number is the ones column, right? So there's no decimals. So we would look at the number to the right of the whole number. So since ones is the whole number, we look at the right of it. So the 7 to the right of the 7. And the rule is if it's 5 and over, we round to the next number. If it's 4 or under, we round to the lesser number. So since 9 is over 5, this gets rounded to 18 on the dot. So when we're rounding 17.936 to the nearest whole number, it would be 18. Now what happens if we were to round this to the nearest tenths? Well, what is the tenths? The tenths here is the 9. So we look at the right of the 9, and it's a 3. 3 is obviously less than 5, correct? So we round down. So we get rid of this, and it only becomes 17.9. Does that make sense? If the 3 was over, if the 3 was 5 or over, we would round this to the we would round the 9 to the number next to it, which is 10. So this would actually be 18 as well. To the nearest hundredths, well, we look at the hundredths column, and the hundreds number is the 3. So we look at the number to the right of it. So 17. So let me just write that down here. Okay, 17.936. The hundredth number is 3. If we were to round to the nearest hundredths, we look at the number to the right of the hundredths, and it's a 6. Since 6 is over 5, we round up. So this becomes a 4. So the number becomes 17.94. If we were asked to round 17.936 to the nearest hundredths, it would be 17.94. Okay, let's do a few more so we could really solidify our learning. So we've got a whole bunch of numbers here. So round the following numbers to the nearest whole, tenth, and hundredths. So whole number, we look at the 8 because that's the right of the whole number. 8 is over 5, so this becomes 14. If it's to the closest tenth, this is the 10th number, so we look at the 9. 9 is greater than 5, so we change the 8 to a 9. So this becomes 13.9. The hundredths is the 9, and we look at the number to the right of it, 5. 5 is a tricky one. 5 goes up, not down, okay? It's right there in the middle. So we round up with a 5, so this becomes, so we round the 9 up, so this becomes actually a 10, but since we can't write a 10, it actually becomes a 0, and we take the 1 and put it here. So this is actually 13.9 as well. Does that make sense? Let me do this in more detail here. Oh, sorry about that. So 13.8954. So we're doing the nearest hundredths. The hundredths happens to be, well, I messed that up. I messed it up, sorry. It's 13.8954. So the nearest hundredths, the hundredths is the 9. Well, 5 makes the 9 go up to a 10. So really it's 13.810, but we can't write a 10. So we put the 0 here and we take that 1 and lend it to the 8. So it becomes 13.9. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's start with let's go on with the next number. 238.010 to the whole number. This is the whole number, so we look at the number to the right. Since it's a 0, obviously this rounds down, so 238 to the nearest tenths. 0 is the tenth, so we look at the number to the right of the tenths, which is 1. 1 is below 5, so again we round down, so it becomes 238.00, which is the same as 238. We don't have to put the 0.00. It doesn't make a difference if you put it or not, just to let you know. To the nearest hundredths, again, the hundredth is the one. The number to the right of it is a 0, so we round down, so 238. So in this particular case, they all round to the same thing, 238, because the numbers right of the decimal are really low. Let's look at this. 63.6500, whole number, is a 3. We look at the 6, which is right next to it. 6 is over 5, so it rounds up, so this becomes 64. If we were to round to the nearest tenths, 6 is the 10th, so we look at the number next to it, is a 5. The 5 rounds up, so it becomes 63.7, right? We round up the 6 to a 7. And if we're doing the nearest hundredths, the hundredth is the 5. Um, the number next to it is a 0, so we round down. So it's 63.65. Cool. 76. 76 is a tricky one. Doesn't have any decimals. So rounding 76 to a whole number is 76 because 76 is a whole number. Tenths and hundreds. Well, there's an imaginary infinite amount of zeros here because it doesn't matter how many zeros you put after the decimal, it's the same. So the tenth, the hundreds, the thousands are all zeros and they all round to 0. So the number here is 76 and 76. Okay, let's look at this. 0.985. Round to the nearest whole number. Well, whole number is a 0. The number to the right of it is a 9, so we round up. So this becomes 1, right? It's 1.000, but you don't put that because it's the same as just 1. So the answer is 1. If we are rounding to the nearest tenths, so this is a tenth. So we look at the number next to it and it'll round up. So the 8 rounds the 9 to a 10, but since you can't put a 10, so we put the 0 and we lend the 1 to the digit next over. So we round this to a 1 as well. And to the nearest hundredths, it's a 8. So the number next to it is a 5. 5 rounds up, so this becomes 0.99. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this lesson and thank you for watching.